Hello and welcome to Author Conversations. As usual, I'm Chris Dabbs, but today our guest is educator, community leader, and author Keith Daniel Saunders Sr. Now, for more than 30 years, Keith has worked in education, serving as a teacher, a principal, and youth advocate, while helping shape the lives of thousands of young people. His new memoir, Roosevelt to the Hamptons, The War on Both Sides, is both, deeply personal and socially provocative. It explores growing up in Roosevelt, Long Island, his experiences navigating both black and white communities, the education system, race, leadership, faith, and the lessons that shaped his life. So after that introduction, Keith, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Author Conversations. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to appear on your platform. I'm truly honored.
Oh, no, not at all. I'm truly honored to talk to you about your book because obviously having does research around it's quite amazing. I think, because it's not simply an autobiography, is it? I mean, you've looked at it. It's a kind of a memoir, a social commentary, but it's about educational leadership, history, and cultural observation. And I think that the key part from what I've seen so far, not that I want to sort of like do any spoilers or anything, but I think what you're saying is that America continues to experience divisions that affect both black and white communities, but differently.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So on that sort of theme, really, let's go for it. I mean, what actually sort of inspired you to write Roosevelt to the Hamptons, The War on Both Sides?
What inspired me to really lock in and write the book is based upon my 30 plus year career in the business. And I was in a district out in Suffolk County, Long Island, in which it was predominantly white. And I experienced some racial trauma. And as a result of that, it really motivated me to really share my journey as a Black educator on Long Island. And it's called The War on Both Sides because the trauma that I experienced in Southampton is also the trauma that I also experienced in some of the districts that look like me. So it is a matter of, wow, there's a lot of commonalities in both districts. And it is more of an evaluation of a public school system and the education that we receive.
It's interesting, yeah, because obviously you're saying the war on both sides. I mean, how did you mean that? I mean, you're obviously not talking about a real war, as it were, combat situations, but there's clearly a war in education or a war just.
It's a war of ideology and thought process. When you are an African American male educator on Long Island, the expectation is that when you work in a predominantly Black school district, that you will be treated a specific kind of way. The expectation that the community will all of a sudden just love you. There's an expectation that children will gravitate towards you, but that's a misnomer. I've been called an Uncle Tom. I've been called a sellout, but meanwhile, I do more community work than anybody. And sometimes when I'm in meetings, parents don't realize that you may be the only advocate in that room fighting for their child. But the perception is because I wear a shirt and tie, because of the history of America in the public school system when it pertains to African Americans, you're automatically considered a sellout because you are working for the system that had the Dred Scott decision, that had Plessy versus Ferguson, that had a variety of other historic landmarks, the Dred Scott decision. So when you work for a system that's connected to that, people can't see beyond their experience. So when you're in the Black community, they look at you sometimes as somebody as an agent provocateur working for a system that's designed to destroy them, not realizing that you may be the only hope behind the scenes fighting for them. And then we work in the white school districts, the perception is that you're a DEI hire, that you're not qualified, that you're here on another kind of a social program that was just a affirmative action. They just assume that you're affirmative action hire. And sometimes they don't want to take direction from an African-American male and leadership because they just assume that they're smarter than you are. So that's the war on both sides. You make a conscious effort to come back home and serve your community, but you get rejected when it's time to make hard decisions and make corrections in behaviors. But then when you go to the other side, the grass is not greener over there because the perception is you're not qualified to be here. Who do you know? How did you get in the door to be in this space? So you get caught in a dichotomy of, wow, I'm getting pulled in both directions. But my faith and my belief in a higher power, my belief in God has allowed me to, that's where the underlying focus in the book is being, who are you connected to? And what is your power to be able to navigate between the war on both sides without losing yourself? The key is not to lose yourself, let other people define you and your journey. The key is to make impact in the lives of children and families and teachers wherever you go. And as people get to know me and my professionalism, they eventually come around to see that I am a professional. I deserve the right to be here. I put the work in, 33 years in the game. You can't question my credentials.
You must be doing something right, Keith? I mean,
I'm definitely doing something right.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm sitting to you now, talking to you from my office here at Roosevelt High School, where I'm the principal. 33 years ago, I grew up in this community. I did my student teaching here, and one of my dreams was to come back home and become the principal to make a difference. A lot of people are not aware Roosevelt was the only school ever taken over by New York State back in 1992, 93. So we were the only school ever taken over by New York State. And I was a student teacher here when that occurred. So my focus has been ever since that I want to be the one to come back to make change. I want to be the one to come back to make a difference. It took almost 25 years, but I'm sitting here talking to you now. So all things are possible if you have faith in yourself, a belief in yourself, and a belief in the higher power. Have supportive people around you who also see your potential. And no matter what other people are saying, you got to keep knocking at that door till you get a door that opens.
Well, that's very true, isn't it? I mean, I think that's a good lesson. And it's clearly I can't exactly resonate with what you're saying, right? First of all, I'm white. Secondly, I live in the UK. Things are different, obviously. Yeah. But there'll be thousands, millions of people who do understand what you're saying, and I think that this is the whole point, though, isn't it? That you try and do good in your community, and you potentially get rejected by both sides, and you're the person in the middle who, as you say, is an advocate for one side or an advocate for the other. Honestly, it must be something. But clearly, you are now doing what you wanted to do, and you're back in that office, or you're in that office rather, 25 years later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did growing up in Roosevelt really sort of shape the man that you became, first of all? I mean, how did that work?
During the time that I grew up, I'm a 70s baby. 70s is my birthday, birth year. And growing up in that time period, Roosevelt was a predominantly African-American community. I was one of the only few people on my block who didn't have a father in the house. A lot of the men were present in the homes. Families were together. There was a lot of businesses that were owned by African Americans in the community when I was growing up. So I saw role models. I saw examples. And it was a motivating factor to me. My mother kept me involved in sports. And luckily, the men who were the coaches took time out me to help me become the man that I am today. Even sometimes they took away from their own children to pour into me because I was friends with their children, and you had these conversations as adults, then you see the other side of it. But I was fortunate that a lot of men in the community poured into me. And my mom was focused. My mom went to college, but she didn't graduate because she had me senior year. So her emphasis, it was drilled into me that you were going to college. It was drilled into me that you were going to be successful. It was drilled into me that you were going to break generational curses. So when I grew up in this community, I witnessed this shift. When crack cocaine hit the community, it really started to destroy the fabric of the community. The businesses started to go away. Crime increased. Drugs took over. Young men who I knew personally, who were athletes and academics and came from quality homes, got caught up in this life. And so I got a chance to see another dichotomy of the war on both sides, from a community that was thriving, where a lot of well-to-do African Americans and professionals lived, to a community that was on a decline. And I'm a teenager in high school experiencing this decline. And I'm watching friends now go to jail. I'm watching friends now go to the morgue who are getting murdered. So, and these are young men who was never, as the kids on the street like to say, about that life. They were never into that stuff. But once you get involved in that illegal activity, it becomes a magnet. And now you got to defend the turf. You got to defend the area which you have. So it turns young, innocent kids into killers because they want to preserve the amount of money and profit that they're generating from this illegal product. And now that's another war on both sides in reference to, okay, you went from a quality home to doing illegal activities. Now you're going to jail. You know better, but because the money kept coming in, you decide to roll the dice and risk everything. and now you're incarcerated. Now you got a prison record. So the community helped shape me because I got a chance to see the two different worlds of the community, what the community was, what it became. Then in my mind, I knew what it could be because I got a chance to see what it could be. And when you get a chance to see what it could be, you pour your energy into that to develop yourself. The community that raised me here, Roosevelt, I didn't have an African male teacher at all until I got to college. Never had an African male teacher. So you're talking to a young man who didn't have a father at home. My grandfather was an alcoholic. My uncle was an alcoholic. So you're talking to a young man who grew up in a community with no male role models, really, except for the coaches and a few cousins. And I still made it because of the love and support of the overwhelming community. I had a very loving grandmother, a very loving mother. I had an extended family who really looked out for me. Like I said, my friends' fathers took time to take me to games and this and that and other to fill in that void. So the community made me strong because of the adversity that I went through. I like to say my story is about struggle, survival, and transformation. Because I struggled, I survived, and I transformed into the man I am today. I'm a mentor to a lot of young people. What people don't understand is the perseverance is I was married as well before my wife died from breast cancer when I was 39 years old. So, and I had to kind of figure out how do I move on as a widower and still be a professional and do the things I have to do. But again, the survival and the transformation, the way God works in your life, if you continue to believe, God will provide answers. Late wife, before she passed, told me clearly that you will one day find a wife, you will one day have a son, and she wanted me to be happy. And by the grace of God, 5 years later, I found a wife, and not only did I have a son, I had twins. One boy, as he promised. I like to say the promise and the overflow. The promise, my daughter's the overflow. I had twins. So
that worked out then. I mean, does your daughter mind being called the overflow?
yes.
Yeah, I bet. But I mean, it's quite amazing, really. I mean, many memoirs, they celebrate achievements. They start off with, oh, yeah, it was a bit tough, but, I did this, I did that, and everything else. But yours kind of opens with conflict and trauma and uncomfortable truths, right? And I think we can tell this already. You seemingly, you come across as very honest, right? And very sort of, I mean, why was honesty more important for you, I guess, in the way that you wrote the book rather
Yeah. When you get through my journey, it will make you feel good if you get to the end of the journey.
Sure.
You see the transformation. The transformation is incremental. And a lot of people are experiencing what I experienced, but they do it in silence. My voice, my sharing, my transparency, my humbleness. I wanted to reach people who were experiencing the same thing and struggling in silence. I want them to know that you too can overcome. You too, if you believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself, just keep pushing. And that's my underlying message, is just to keep pushing, because the reality is negativity is blunt and harsh and in your face. My opinion is the positivity has to be just as blunt and harsh and in your face, because we live in a Twitter society, an Instagram, a meta society. Everything is instant in short bursts. If you notice, most adults and children nowadays don't develop human relationships through human communication. I'm talking to you right now through a computer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people communicate, could be in the same room and they're texting back and forth. That human element is being missed. So part of my struggle and my struggle, I want people who actually read paper, turn pages, or get an ebook or audiobook to really dive into the fact of, yes, he struggled. Yes, he made some bad financial decisions. But look at what God did for him. Look at how he overcame all of that.
No, exactly. And obviously, you nearly touched on a favorite subject of mine, which is clearly the social media aspect of the world that we live in today, which is, interesting, to say the least. But, working in education and being an educator, you've spent decades, clearly 30 years plus, working inside schools, as you said. I mean, what point, though, made you realize that education kind of wasn't simply about teaching subjects? Okay, so in other words, you're good at math, you're good at geography, whatever it is, but really about changing lives and mentorship and, all of the things that I guess you received, right, from other people's parents.
For me, it was one professor, Professor Kenneth Jenkins at Nassau Community College. He really, really changed my life. When I went to college, my thought was, I want to make a lot of money. So the first emphasis was, I want to be an accountant because you associate money with accounting. Then it was like, I'm an former athlete, so I say, I want to be connected to sports. I want to be a physical therapist. And when I connected with this gentleman on campus, he corrected my diction, he corrected my speech, he gave me advice on life and the proper way of doing things. He always used to say, this is the order you should do things. Establish your career, then find a wife, and then purchase your house, and then have children. Do it in that respective order. He was more than just a professor. And then I was taking an African history course, and that's when I began to learn more about my history and culture beyond slavery. See, the public school system only teaches you what they want you to know. His story is really his story. It's the story of the victor. Whoever won, whoever gets the spoils, writes their version of the story. So when you're doing his story, you're left out. I was left out of his story until I got to college and started learning about my story. And my story is American history. My story is world history. And then it boosted your self-esteem. My self-esteem started to grow. My confidence started to grow. I went from real quiet, tall, skinny kid to a boisterous young man who was confident. And some people had difficulties dealing with the confidence. And I like the quote from Daniel Saunders, don't let my confidence prick your insecurities. Yeah. So for me, it was that time when I started learning. I said I wanted to have the impact on children that this gentleman had on me. So I switched my major to African history and culture and education because I wanted to go back into the community which I came from to serve the community on the level that he served me, because he changed my life forever with just conversations about life. It's about history, conversations about women, conversations about everything. Just realize that you have to be more than just X's and O's, math, reading, science, and social studies. You have to become a one-stop shopping and be the social worker, because you're dealing with social emotional learning. You're dealing with conflict mediation. You deal with all these different things. And I think I'm perfect for that because my book documents that I've been through it all. And because I've been through it all, I can relate to you on all the different levels. If you just lost your mom, okay, I lost my mom. If you were divorced, what do you call it, widowed, I've been there. I've done that. My wife had cancer. If you got a loved one have cancer, I know what it takes to deal with that. I've been falsely accused of different things as a teenager. I've been there. I've seen it all. So now in my profession, when I'm speaking to parents, they're amazed by the spectrum that I can have a conversation with them on because I've been through all of it and I survived all of it. So it makes you stronger. So my determination, my focus, my life, I started an organization called Saunders Omnipresent Network, Inspiring America's Youth Incorporated. It's a play on my first wife's first name of Sonia. And the emphasis was on keeping her name alive, but also to do the work that I couldn't do in the school system. Because in the school system, you got rules and regulations. In your own entity, you can fill in the gaps of what they're not getting in school. So it became a powerful tool for 18 years straight, working in a small community in North Babylon to really mentor young men and young ladies, college tours, basketball tournaments, chess. What is chess? How does that game impact you in life? So we were able to really bring in guest speakers from all walks of life, from professional athletes to local businesses and banks and so forth, about credit and finances. So we were filling in the gaps that I didn't have as a kid because my mom was horrible with money. So I said, let me bring in some people to really educate you on money. What is compound interest? How does that impact you? When you buy this credit card, okay, what impact is it going to have you at 27% interest rate? So it became just an amazing opportunity to really pour into young people. And I have students that have had 30 years ago still keep in contact with me.
Wonderful. I mean, that's really good though, isn't it, Keith? I mean, I can totally see what you're saying. And, I think even on this side of the Atlantic, we are crying out for those sorts of lessons that you're giving sort of extracurricularly, outside of school.
Yes.
We're crying out for that because we believe that the younger people need to know all of this. People are at universities, they've got no idea sometimes how to do basic finance, as you say there. I lecture at the University of Brighton here, and it's one of those things where sometimes, I see it, the students, my own children were the same, but I try really hard. So, wow, 18 years of doing that. That's incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Yes, we stopped because of the pandemic.
Oh, right. I got you. Right. So that's really where it all kicked off then, did it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, amazing. Okay. Now, obviously, what I don't want to do is just sort of grill you on your history kind of thing. But I mean, tell us about the book, because, some readers, they'll pick up the book because they're educators and they want to know more. Others because they're interested in race. Others simply because, well, it's a memoir and they read memoirs, right? But what do you hope finishes, the final page when someone does, and they say, "Oh, do you know what? I'm really glad that I read that." What kind of thing do you hope? What message do you hope that they're going to take away?
Oh, the message that they take from it is that don't get so caught up in your own individual race where you can't see anybody else. Everybody that black is not great. Everybody that's white is not bad. Through my journey, I've had some great benefactors who were Caucasian. Short story, when I was in elementary school, transitioned to middle school, my mother worked as a nurse. She had a wealthy client who would pay her a salary and give her additional money for my tuition. When I got older, when my wife was sick with cancer, I had a boss who said, "Don't worry about work. On the days that you need to take her to chemotherapy, take her and go. I'll take care of it." So throughout my journey, I've had some, I call them white guardian angels along the way. And it made me open my mind to the realities that everybody that looks differently is not bad. And everybody that looks like me is not good. So you come to the realization that, and also my book is designed to bridge cultural divides and spark conversations about race, identity, and purpose. It's designed to be about self-awareness. Self-awareness is extremely important, and being resilient. The book is available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. It's called Roosevelt to the Hamptons, The War on Both Sides. You can get it off my own website, which is Keith, Keith, D as in David, Saunders, SAUNDERS.org. Or you can go to Roosevelt, like the President Roosevelt, Hamptons.org. So I also do public speaking. I'm willing to travel to the UK. So we do public speaking. We are very diverse in our audiences. We do trainings on a variety of different things. We cater directly to our audience. So the key thing is, Roosevelt to the Hamptons. You want to contact me? You contact me on Instagram at Keith_Saunders_Sr. Or you can contact me at info at KeithDSaunders.com.
Fantastic. I couldn't have said any of that better myself, Keith. That's really good. Well, thank you for that, because, this has been a fascinating conversation, and it's just such a shame that, we haven't got longer to talk about it, because there's so much that we could unpack from this. But anyway, just to remind you, listeners and viewers, this book is called Roosevelt to the Hamptons, The War on Both Sides. Yeah. And if today's discussion has sparked your interest, you'll find links in the description wherever you're watching or listening. Keith, thank you so much for joining me on Author Conversations. I hope that you continue to help young people. It sounds by the looks of things that you will be.
Thank you.
Thanks. Lovely to meet you. Take care.
Take care, sir.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this conversation, you can watch more Author Conversations here.